You're listening to the Elvis Ultimate Fan Channel podcast, the channel that is devoted 100% to the life and career of the biggest selling recording artist of all time, with your host, Steve Francis.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Elvis the Ultimate Fan Channel podcast. Dave Hebler is best known to Elvis Presley fans as being his bodyguard in the 1970s. He is also an internationally recognized martial arts self-defense instructor, lecturer and senior Grandmaster, and founder of American Kenpo Karate. Dave has written several books, including Making It Out Alive, Protecting Women and Children from Violence, and How to Survive Encounters of the Worst Kind. He contributed to the book Elvis What Happened, along with Red and Sonny West, who also worked for Elvis, and has recently written a follow-up, The Elvis Experience. Dave joins me on the line now to talk about his time working for Elvis. Hi Dave, and welcome to Elvis the Ultimate Fan Channel podcast.
Hi Steve, thank you. A pleasure to be with you.
I'd like to say, before we go any further, for your benefit and the listeners' benefit, that I haven't got any axes to grind. I haven't got any knives sharpened or anything like that. So just if anybody's thinking it's going to be a hatchet job on you or anything like that, they can just switch off now.
I agree. However, don't let that limit your questions, because as long as the conversation is civil, I'm more than willing to discuss just about any topic.
Brilliant. Well, I can assure you it will be civil. I wouldn't have gone to all this time, wasting your time and my time just to stick the knives in. I'm sure after, 43 years, I'm sure you've had more than enough of that.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Still getting it, as a matter of fact, unfortunately, but that's the way of the world. So.
That's the way some people are, yeah. So,
Yep.
Would you like to tell me a little bit about your upbringing and how you got into martial arts and all that? I understand you were originally from Massachusetts?
Yes, I was. I was born and raised in a tenement with 4 brothers and 2 parents in a 3-room tenement with 1 bathroom, no hot water, no phone, no TV, no car. But we did have rats and cockroaches, which was a really challenge for me to shoot and kill with various devices. So that was my my early days being raised. And following my graduation from high school, I joined the Air Force and ended up in Southern California at March Air Force Base. And to bring you up to date on the martial arts stuff, I had an opportunity to start training in 1958 with a few Hawaiian guys who were in my same squadron. And they knew I was getting out of the Air Force the following year, 1959, and enrolling in college in Pasadena, California. And they suggested that after I do the enrollment, I drive up the street 2 blocks and look in on this guy named Ed Parker.
Yes, we all know Ed Parker. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did exactly that. I enrolled in college, and I drove up the street, and there was the studio. I walked in. There was Ed Parker. He was the only one there, and we had a conversation, and he took me out on the mats and demonstrated, his art of Kenpo karate to me. And I was astounded, frankly. I had never seen a human being that could move like him. He was just amazing.
Wow.
And I ended up so enthusiastic that I signed up for lessons right then and there. And for the next 2 months, while I was still in the Air Force, I drove 60 miles one way twice a week for lessons, with him. And that was the start of my martial art career. The lessons that Elvis got from Ed Parker were few and far between. I mean, it wasn't a continuous training program by any means. And if I can jump ahead just a little bit, I actually gave Elvis more Kenpo lessons than anybody.
Right.
Primarily because I worked for him and I was there 24/7.
Yeah. So obviously you met Elvis through Ed.
Yes, as a matter of fact. Okay, I was sitting in my karate school in Glendora, California. I got a call from a black belt friend of mine who I hadn't seen in some time, informing me that they were going to have a black belt get-together workout at Ed Parker's school in Santa Monica, California, and invited me to come on down and join the group. And since I hadn't seen these guys in quite a while, I endured the 3-hour drive, and I got to school. We all got suited up, and we're out on the mats, just beating the crap out of each other and just having a really good time. And and then I noticed a commotion at the door, and I turned and looked, and in walked, oh my God, Elvis Presley. And I'm thinking to myself, what's he doing here?
Yeah.
Well, in any event, he watched for a while, and then he ended up literally getting out on the mats and working out with us. And I was his training partner. And we called training partners in those days the dummy, because what else would you call somebody who would allow you to beat on them?
Yeah, that's for sure.
But in any event, I helped him out with the material because he was, to give him credit, it would be an amazing chore for anybody to walk into a karate school in a system that he's not familiar with and work out with them. That's a big deal right there.
Yeah.
But he did well, and I guess he enjoyed beating up on me. I did a technique that I enjoyed doing. It was just a demonstration of speed, and basically it was 13 different moves that I could, in those days, do in 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Today it takes me 2 minutes, but
I know how you
he
feel.
was very impressed with that, and a day or so later, I got a call from Ed Parker informing me that Elvis wanted to meet with me and him, and out at his house in Beverly Hills. So I said, sure. So off we went, and we were all sitting around and just chatting and telling stories and laughing and telling jokes and having a good time. And Elvis said, Dave, you're going to have to excuse us for a minute, if you don't mind. We have something that we have to take care of out in the driveway. So if you'll just sit here for a while, I'll appreciate it. And I said, fine. So off they go, and they're out taking care of whatever business they're supposed to be taking care of. And I hear Elvis yell, hey, Dave, come on out here. I need you. And I had no clue. I didn't know whether it was a problem or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyhow, they're all standing there. And Elvis says to me, and I said, yeah, Elvis, what can I help you with? And he says, it's this car right here. A 1971 Mercedes-Benz 280 SL. Yeah. I still didn't know what he was referring to, and he said, I would like you to drive this car somewhere for me. And I, sure. Where would you like me to take it? And he said, anywhere you like. It's your car.
Oh, my heavens.
I know. Then he handed me the keys and the paperwork to the car. I said, enjoy your car, Dave. And they all walked in the house and left me there. And so me and Ed Parker drove our separate ways on home, and that was my that was my first brush with the unbelievable generosity of
Yeah,
Elvis Presley.
that's unbelievable. You must have had your mouth open when he said it's yours and handed you the keys. Just the draw drop.
I was astounded. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I'm a poor boy from the tenements. I never had anything like that happen to me.
That wasn't the time he was wearing the turban, surely.
No, it wasn't. That was sometime after that first meeting. I got a call at my school and stating Elvis wanted to come out and visit with me at my school. And so he did. We're out, working out on a mess and having a good time, and he's laughing. He's sitting there, and he's got my two daughters on either side of him, and one of which, my oldest daughter, Lori, he's showing his all the jewelry that he was wearing to her, and she was just fascinated listening to him describing all of his jewelry, and he's wearing this turban. Now everybody was wondering about the turban. People to this day still wonder, why in the heck was he wearing that turban? Well, I was interested too, so I asked him, why are you wearing that turban? And he said, because when I was leaving the house, my house looked like, my hair looked like shit. And I didn't want to go out in public looking like that, so I grabbed this turban and stuck it on my head.
Why not? As you do.
I mean, don't we all do that?
Yeah.
I mean, when our hair looks like crap, we wear a turban.
There's some lovely photographs actually taken that evening, and your daughters are in them, as you said. And I've actually seen the movie footage as well, the 8mm movie footage on YouTube as well, and it's quite cool.
Yeah, it is. It was a fun time. It was enjoyable for everybody, except he stepped on my youngest daughter's foot and broke her foot. So other than that,
I don't believe
it was
it.
a great experience for
Oh
them,
no!
too.
Oh no! Oh.
Yeah, that picture is my favorite picture, obviously.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Understandably so. I think the only thing we can do now is discuss Elvis, what happened.
Okay.
Everybody is probably on tenterhooks waiting for us to mention that. I suppose looking at the cover, the front side says "The dark other side of the brightest star in the world," and then when you flip it over, it says "brooding, violent, obsessed with death, strung out, and sexually driven." So that would be the way it's presented in 1977.
Okay, well, let me give you my comments on it.
I have the actual initial print in my hand now. I bought it on the day it was released. It's very dog-eared now, and the pages are very yellow. So I got it. I got it when it came out on the 1st of August.
Yeah. Well, in the first place, to go back to what you said, the words that were written on the cover of that book and the back cover of the book, those were not our words. We didn't say that. We didn't say any of that. Those were the words of the publisher and their writer, Steve Dunleavy.
Steve Dunleavy, yeah.
Yes.
What we're saying here really is it was sensationalized.
Exactly. That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. And we were helpless to do anything about it. As a matter of fact, neither Red, Sonny, or I. Red had an opportunity to read the final draft that they published until they actually published it. And we were, to be perfectly honest with you, pissed off at the way it came out.
That's quite understandable.
Because we sat in a hotel room, the three of us, with Steve, and we told stories, and which he recorded, and we did that for 30 days. 30 days. We told bunches of stories,
Mm-hmm.
and the vast majority of those stories were fun times, good times. You know, the jokes we played on each other, the kind of interactions that we had back and forth, and funny kinds of situations. And the publishers decided to ignore all of that and to sensationalize the quote negative stuff, and we were helpless to do anything about it because they owned all the rights and they had all the power, and we had nothing. So obviously, the book as it was produced was a sensational. The publishers were right. It was sensational.
It didn't fit the agenda at the time. They had Steve and Ballantine books. Obviously, it was to try and paint the darkest possible picture of Elvis Presley at the time.
Yeah, and that was our problem. Our problem was that they didn't print any of the good stuff. You know, I mean, there was no balance to the book, and we complained. We made our feelings known to the publishers, and they just told us to, pound sand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They weren't interested in what we were doing. And, and one more item I'd like to address with to those folks who hated the book and hated us as a result of it, and the many that still do today. One of the things that really gets my goat is the ignorant hatred. Like they're all screaming, yeah, they're Judases, they're backstabbers, and they did it all for the money. Here's your 30 pieces of silver, and crap like that. And the point of fact is this. Let's talk about the money.
Okay.
And I will tell you the facts. And the fact is this. I made 1.6 cents per book. And I don't know where all those millions I supposedly made went.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, the book was in print for 22 years, and we never got a royalty, not a penny, for the last 10 years that it was in print. So, my point is that y'all weren't there. Therefore, you don't know, for a fact, what you're talking about. Because everything that you know is hearsay. It's second-hand information. Now, I will say that some of the information that you think you know is true and it's accurate. Some of it is not true and it's not accurate. And some of it is flat out BS. Mm-hmm. It really is. So, that's my statement of facts. People can choose to believe what they want to believe. And if they want to continue, with their hatred, then it's on them.
So this brings me to the question, why did you, Sonny and Red, get together and do the book?
Well, we did, just to backtrack briefly, we tried everything in our power that we could do to help Elvis with his problem. Now, everybody knew that Elvis had a drug issue. Everybody. I mean, the dog knew it. The three of us were the ones that stepped up and tried to do something about it. I mean, I was accused of being a bully, and I objected to it, and I was less than nice to the people that were bringing in the drugs. But, I'd like to just expand on that a little bit. When I say that everybody knew that Elvis had a drug problem, everybody includes his father.
Yeah, I was going to come to that because he was obviously he held the financial purse strings. The doctor,
Yep.
the doctors had to be paid. The pills had to be paid for. For him,
Yes.
for him to try and claim that he had no knowledge that Elvis had a problem with prescription medications would just be a falsity.
Absolutely true. And so why didn't Vermin step in? I mean, this is his son who has this drug problem that we believed was going to kill him. We believed he was in mortal peril. We didn't believe that he was a bad guy. Not at all. Not for a second did we ever believe that. He was a good guy, but he had a problem. He was a victim. And the three people that stood up and tried to do what they could do, and one of the things that we tried to do was get him into a rehab facility, and with cooperation from the police force in Denver, Colorado, had it all set up. It would have been, no one would have known about it, and it would be protected. And when it was presented to him, he went insane. I mean, insane, just crazy mad. So mad that he just turned to us and said, we're leaving right now, and go get on the plane. And we left so fast that we had to leave a couple of guys behind to pack our bags to bring them, to Las Vegas, where we were going, and Elvis, to stay with Dr. Ganem. And that was the, as a matter of fact, I'm getting a little emotional now, and I need to calm down a little bit. But so in desperation, frankly, we decided that if we were to go public, maybe this would force him to realize what he was doing, not only to himself, but everybody around him, and maybe make some changes. Now, our reasons were threefold. The first one was we were fired with no notice and 2 weeks' pay.
Which is very harsh. Very harsh.
I would just suggest to the folks that are listening right now that, they all worried about Elvis's feelings, and they fail to realize that other folks have feelings too. So there we are out in the street with no job, no income, and a family to feed. How in the world are we going to do that? I was 38 years old, the next bodyguard. Where am I going to go for a job? But in any event, there was that consideration. The consideration about the manner in which we were fired really pissed us off. It really did. It was wrong. It shouldn't have been handled that way.
There's a theory that Elvis had said to Vernon, we'll hire them back after a few weeks or months. We'll just give them a message to say that, it's none of their business. And then Vernon just forgot to say that to you, that you will be hired back.
Yep. And he also forgot to mention that Elvis told him to pay us each $5,000.
Well, that doesn't surprise me because Vernon was quite tight, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, all of his stuff was paid for. And if the reason that he gave us is that they were having, overhead problems and they needed to cut expenses, then why did they hire three people right behind us?
Exactly. Do you mind me asking you, what was the rate of pay in the 70s with Elvis?
I made $350 a week. I actually made quite a bit more at my karate school, but nevertheless, I made $350 a week, and but all my expenses were paid for.
Well, that's true. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I received tons of gifts from Elvis. I mean, tons of stuff.
Yeah.
If you want, I can go into that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, you know, I nowadays and for the last few years, I've been doing tours and speaking engagements and things of that nature. And what I try to do is answer questions that folks might have. Now, the number one question that I've received over the years is what was Elvis Presley, the person, really like? So, in an attempt to answer that, is, you know, I had a quandary. I mean, how the heck do you answer that? You know, I mean, I couldn't even describe myself, you know, adequately. Never mind, you know, Elvis Presley. So, I thought, well, everybody knew. And everybody knows that Elvis Presley was a generous human being, and he really was. He was the most generous human being I ever met, and probably you ever met. I mean, he gave away houses and furniture and cars and trucks and motorcycles and go-karts and money and jewelry and clothing, and often he did that with complete strangers. So, with that in mind, I thought folks might be interested in hearing what it was like to be on the receiving end of all that generosity. So I told the story of the second car that Elvis gave me, which illustrates the point that I'm trying to make with it. Elvis and I and somebody else were driving around Memphis one day. I forget who was driving the car, but Elvis was in the front seat and I was in the back seat, and we're just driving around aimlessly, telling stories and talking about women and, you know, telling jokes and just having a good time. And Elvis abruptly says to me, "You know what, Dave, I want to buy you a car." And I said, "Well, that's nice, Elvis, but you don't have to do that." He said, "Yeah, I know I don't have to do it, but I want to buy you a car." I said, "Well, Elvis, you just gave me a Mercedes a year and a half ago. You don't have to give me a car." He says, "I know I don't have to buy you a car, but I want to buy you a car." I said, "Well, you know, I mean, don't feel like you need to." And next thing I know, there's a loaded gun stuck in my face. Elvis said to me, "You're going to take this fucking car, or I'm going to blow your fucking head off." And I went, "Whoa, okay, Elvis, I'll take the car. I didn't know you were serious." So he gave me the car. It was a 1974 Lincoln Mark IV, which I drove for 20 years, actually. Today, that car is on display at Graceland.
Oh, right.
For all of y'all that go there on the tour, it's the purple Lincoln. But nevertheless, back to the story. So a few months later, Elvis and I were sitting in his room, and I said, "Hey, Elvis, you got any idea of how many vehicles you have given away, you know, in the last couple of years?" And he went, "No, and I don't care." I went, "Oh, okay." And he said, "Hang on, I want to show you something." So he comes back and he hands me a check made out to him in the amount of $100,000.
Wow.
One of many checks in a series before, and many more to come. And he said, "I'm not stupid. I understand that I couldn't buy the kind of PR and goodwill that I get when I buy somebody a car." He says, "Secondly, it seems like every time I do something good for people, for somebody, it comes back to me 10 times over, just like that check you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, it makes me feel good to make people happy. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was what Elvis the person was really like.
He just loved giving. He loved the expression on people's faces when he gave them the gifts. That I've heard that mentioned many times. It was the giving. It was the expression on the people's faces.
Oh yeah, yeah. They were astounded. Like I was.
I'd like to move on a little bit now and discuss the health issues that Elvis had later on, and obviously, some of these conditions he had did require the medications that he was taking, but there was also a certain amount of recreational use as well with the drugs, wasn't there?
Yeah, I don't know. The best way I can try to shed some light on that is that, when Elvis died, they found either 11 or 14 different drugs in his system in the autopsy, and the guy, I wasn't there. Neither Red, Sonny, or I were there when he died. We'd been gone for a year, so we weren't there. But the guys that were still there, half of them were saying that, well, Elvis never did drugs. I mean, he just, he had some prescriptions, of course, but he never abused that, and he was in really good health, and he was looking forward to the next upcoming tour. The other half was saying, well, Elvis had a disease that no one knew anything about it. It was a secret. So my response to that is, well, if it was a secret, how do you know about it? Number two, if Elvis was in good health, as half of them said, what was he doing with 11 to 14 different drugs in his system? On the other hand, if Elvis had a disease of some kind, name for me the disease that requires the simultaneous ingestion of 14 different drugs.
So who would be to blame? Would it be Elvis? Would it be the doctors?
It would be twofold, in my opinion, or maybe threefold. It would be Elvis, because we are ultimately responsible for what it is that we do individually, I think. And it was also the fault of the bad doctors, who should have had more principles. They knew perfectly well, the stuff that they were prescribing was not good for Elvis. They knew it, but they did it in return for, Elvis's friendship and his money. And then there are then there's the third one, which is Vermin. Why didn't he do anything? So, those three things, I think, were the primary culprits, if you will. I don't know what else to call it.
There would have been a certain amount of stress being Elvis Presley, his unique lifestyle that he had to lead, stresses of touring, the boredom of Las Vegas, all those sort of things would have piled in as well.
Yes, that's true. But, for those people who point at the Colonel and, maybe with good reason, but point at the Colonel as complicit by, quote, working Elvis to death, it's just nonsense. There are many performers work, 200-300 days a year. And Elvis didn't work anywhere near that amount.
Now,
I mean, he would go out on tour for, a week, 2 weeks. And how many tours would he do a year? You would probably know those statistics better than me. And if you add up all of that, totality of work, it doesn't compare to the kind of work that most performers go through.
You just mentioned the Colonel there. He knew about the drugs.
Oh, yeah. Colonel, in my, last year, whether you realize it or not, I wrote a book.
Yeah, the Elvis Experience.
Yeah, after 42 years of silence, I decided to tell my own story. And I included in there a chapter on the Colonel. I quoted word for word the words that I forget who the author was about the Colonel, and he was probably a murderer that escaped from Holland. Blah blah blah. That whole I printed the whole thing, and then in contrast, I told of my experiences with the Colonel, and they were quite different. I never knew that the Colonel had that kind of a background. I never knew that at all. So I just described the interplay that I had personally with the Colonel, and everything else is hearsay to me. I mean, if you talk to me about Elvis's appearances in the 50s, I have no idea what you're talking about. I wasn't there. Anything before 1972, I wasn't there. So, my information up to that point in time was hearsay as well.
That actually brings me on to a subject that I want to briefly touch on, which is the documentary, A Little Bit of Elvis, that Frank Skinner made in 1998.
Yes.
Now, my own personal opinion on this is, Frank's obvious love for Elvis comes through. And yes. A lot of it wasn't bad. I mean, there was. I mean, the people he met along the way. I mean, he met Scotty Moore. He sang a very, very actually passable version of "Peace in the Valley" with the Jordanaires. But there was times when I thought he was kind of overcooking it slightly and being over dramatic. Just before he met you, it was sort of he called you a killing machine, and you could kill somebody 14 different ways in 14 seconds. And it was a little bit over dramatic for me.
Yeah. Did you like it when I whacked him in the throat?
I thought that was funny. Yeah. Yeah. He kind of looked pretty scared when you did that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about Frank. In the first place, I like him.
Yeah, he's okay. Yeah.
And he's a likable guy.
Yeah.
He also was victimized, by that stupid shirt. The problem is that he became convinced that the bad guy in all of this was me. And he set about to destroy me on national television. Okay. So in any event, the story behind the shirt and the episode with Frank is that I received a bunch of clothing from Elvis and the remark that he's had them hanging around his closet since the 50s. Just take this crap. And one of them was his shirt, which I sold to a lady, who in turn sold it to this guy in Germany, I believe, who then turned around and held an auction selling the shirt and maybe other stuff, I don't know, claiming that the shirt was the shirt that Elvis wore in his 1956 concert in Tupelo, Mississippi. Frank is the guy that bought the shirt, and he paid like 18 grand for it, a lot of money.
Yeah.
And was convinced once he found out that it was not the shirt that Elvis wore in that concert. He was rightly incensed over the fact that he had been ripped off. But his conclusion, in spite of the input that he got from other people, Lamar being one of them, and the makers of that particular shirt,
Bernard Lansky.
Who verified that it was one of their shirts.
Mm-hmm.
He still insisted that I was the bad guy, and he set out to do me in. I think I didn't see that interview or that hack job, for many years afterwards. And when I did see it, I was astounded at how it was edited. I mean, it really was. Edited, but nevertheless, that's the way stuff happens.
Yeah.
So I think in the end that Frank realized that, I really wasn't the bad guy. I didn't even know there was a concert in Tupelo, Mississippi in 1956.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. How would I know?
Yeah, because you didn't start working for him till 72.
Yeah, and I wasn't a fan until I worked for him.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so I never followed his career in any way, before then.
Well, this.
So in any event,
yeah,
that's what happened. So I think we ended up, Frank and I ended up as friends. I like to think we did. In fact, he asked me to sign an autograph for him, which I did. And of course, when he made that remark about me being a killing machine, I just couldn't help myself, and I smacked him in the throat.
Well, my opinion from watching the documentary was, is it an Elvis shirt? Yes. Is it the Tupelo shirt? No. So Frank did have a shirt that belonged to Elvis, but it wasn't the one that the lady said it was.
Yeah. I said that to him, as a matter of fact.
And that's my opinion. I mean, everybody else might have other opinions, but that's my opinion. Yes, it was an Elvis shirt, but not the Tupelo shirt.
That's true. That is true.
I wanted to ask you about Linda Thompson.
Yeah.
A lot of fans say that, if it hadn't been for Linda's devotion to Elvis, he could have died a lot sooner than what he did.
I agree.
She saved his life numerous times?
Well, I don't know as I'd go that far, but she was really the best thing that ever happened to him, I think. She was a wonderful person, beautiful person, as well as being a beautiful woman. And her and I got along very well. At least I believe we did. And I have nothing but good thoughts and admiration for Linda Thompson. She's a class act.
It's been said that she saved his life numerous times by when he was eating or something like that, and he'd fall asleep while he was eating, and he would be choking on the food, and she would actually dig the food out of his mouth and save him from choking. So that's what I was alluding to when I said, she'd saved his life on numerous times.
Yeah, I heard that too. I don't know that to be a fact because I never witnessed it. So, I really don't. I really don't want to comment on something I don't know anything about, really. Right. But I wouldn't doubt it. That could be true.
Yeah. What does Dave Hebler do these days?
Oh my goodness! I just finished writing a home study women's self-defense training manual for women and young ladies. The title of the manual is How to Survive Encounters of the Worst Kind, and it's designed specifically for the novice, for somebody who's never had any training whatsoever. And just a small bit about my motivation with doing this is that here in the U.S., there are 10 million women and young ladies who are physically violently assaulted every year.
My goodness.
And that's been true for 50 years. It's still true today. And the majority of those victims are girls, age 11 to 19. And they are victimized at a rate some 84% higher than the general population. So this is my effort to try to do something about that particular epidemic. And it's now available. I just finished my my new website, which is davehebler.com.
Okay.
Pretty easy to remember that one. And so we're now setting out on a marketing program for that manual. The second thing I'm doing is I signed with a talent agency a few months back in LA, a talent management agency. And they're doing 3 projects, with me. One of them is to take my my book that I wrote last year, The Elvis Experience, and to market that to a major publisher because it was self-published. So they want to try to market it to a major publisher, which means that there'll be quite a bit changed and added to and what have you. I'm pretty okay with that. The second thing is that the DVD that I did based on my appearance in Denmark about 7 years ago, which was called the Elvis Experience, as a matter of fact. And there's also more footage than that was in there, which I've acquired. And so now they are going to produce a new DVD with the added material and whatever, and try to do some kind of a distribution deal. And the third thing they're doing is a movie of my life, which I find kind of humorous. Why would anybody want to make a movie of my life? But they think people would be interested, so they want to proceed with that. And I just finished editing the first 40 pages of the script, so they're quite serious in pursuing this. So hopefully, that stuff will come to happen, but it hasn't happened yet, and until it does, I don't count it.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's what I've been doing.
And where can they get the books, including the Elvis Experience? You do sign copies as well, do you? I have signed copies. I have a few left. I have about 5 copies left. One of the problems of the hard copies and signing them is the shipping costs. The shipping costs are just enormous. Mm-hmm. If I were to ship a book to you, it would cost upwards of $27 to $30 just for the postage. Oh, wow.
So, that would make the book, I would have to charge so darn much money for it. It would be prohibitive. Mm-hmm. The alternative is that the book is also available from Amazon, both in a ebook and as a hard copy book. I believe the prices are $7.99 for the ebook and $19.95 for the hard copy. And if you're a member of Amazon, you can the shipping is free.
Yes.
So that might be a good alternative. But there are some people who want an autograph copy, and what makes that difficult is in the first place I have to purchase the copy, in order to sign it. Yeah. Because the printers, they don't give me the book for free. That's for sure. So it is really costly to do an autograph copy, for folks outside of the continental U.S.
But anybody within the US can contact you, can they, and get a signed copy?
Oh yeah, yeah, they can. I will go and if enough demand, happens, I will, of course, go and buy some copies and be happy to sign them.
Dave, I'd like to say thanks very much for allowing me to chat with you today and for giving up some of your valuable time.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the fact that you didn't stick any knives in me. I'm kind of allergic to people sticking knives in me.
That would have been counterproductive to do that anyway.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, and continued good health as well, Dave, and I'll speak to you again.
Thank you, sir.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.